Are there any difficulties in maintaining mental health, and what's already an individualized sport has become even more isolated with COVID precautions? Athletes have really opened up, especially during COVID, talking about how it's affected their mental health. Are there any practices that you do to keep yourself sane? And how have you been through this whole process?
I'm very fortunate as far as I've never had any kind of mental health issues throughout this whole thing. I'm just not really somebody who has ever dealt with something like anything like that or feel like that. I'm the kind of person it's like if I'm sad, I'm like, well, stop being sad, and I and I will be. So I've been very fortunate, but I will say this, like the conditions we're playing in on the ATP tour right now are not healthy they're not good for anybody's mental health. They're not healthy. I don't think it's fair to have us play under these conditions. And I think a ton of players would just rather not play, but we feel very obligated to.
And so what is it about? Is it the isolation of it that you think is affecting players most?
It's a lot of things together. It's a ton of things. Like I'd say the biggest issue is just the system that we're in on tour is being exposed. The bad situation we're in on tour is being exposed because of COVID, and everything that we're complaining about that's making quality of life and everything else very bad for us on tour is all a symptom of this much bigger problem that we've known that has existed on tour for years, but not really did anything about, because we could still go to tournaments, we could still leave the hotel, we could do whatever. We made like prize money we were happy with. And now it's like if a tournament can have full fans, they'll choose not to have full fans because then they don't need to pay us money. Then they'll make more money. Most of these tournaments don't fill up stands anyways, most of these 250s. So if a tournament knows they only usually get 50% capacity, they'll say, we'll run at 50% capacity, make the same ticket sales they normally do, and pay the players 50% less.
Yeah.
And it's just a broken system that we're in. Like the tour's trying to play Indian Wells, and because of scheduling, the board's going to vote on it. And most of the board owns tournaments, so they're going to vote against it because they don't want Indian Wells to run at full prize money and make all their tournaments look bad. Like it's just a system that was exposed by COVID, and just the mental health of the players traveling week to week, bubble to bubble, being in their rooms, a lot of times not having the best Wi-Fi, stuck in their rooms to the practice courts. The tournaments are cutting, a lot of the tournaments cut corners because of everyone's hurting because of COVID. So they're not as enjoyable to be at. And not to mention the prize money is typically reduced 60 to 70%. So a lot of the players are losing the will to do all this. And again, like I said, everyone feels very obligated to play because of points. Because if they don't play, other people will.
I mean, more than anything, that's so fascinating. It's almost putting a spotlight on pre-existing issues that have been around.
100%. Like I said, there's not prize money's not like a lot of people talk about the prize money, and they talk about the players being so ungrateful, complaining about the prize. The prize money is not the issue. It's just a symptom of a much bigger problem that tournaments are allowed to, because the system that we're in, so many things can be taken advantage of. And a lot of things just don't make sense. Like we're in bubbles at tournaments, but a lot of the bubbles are just for just the optics of everything. Like what's a bubble if random people are staying at the hotel and being in the same elevators as us? What's a bubble if the people working at the tournament aren't also in the bubble? Like the person that's in the elevator with me is going to go out and eat dinner at a restaurant across the street tonight. It's if I'm in the elevator with them, it's like there's no point of keeping me at the hotel. Like, so I think a lot of the players have always been in on this, like kind of thought it, like if we're going to bubble, we're fine with that. Just do it correctly. Like US Open did it correctly. US Open did it correctly.
What, everyone was isolated, like all workers, everyone involved?
Like everybody. I don't think there was ever a situation where we could come into contact with somebody who wasn't in this isolation.
Hmm.
And Australia did a great job of it, because after we did our 2 weeks in the quarantine, we could leave and be normal, because everyone else was. Like, it's like certain tournaments have done a very good job of it and certain tournaments haven't. And like, we just believe as players, we all talked in Miami, like, if people are vaccinated, if people are vaccinated, they should be able to leave. Like, it's very like, it's a whole nother thing we're getting into here, but like, it's a lot of things are just done at expense of the players that just don't make sense. And
So,
COVID's really just COVID, and mental health is just really kind of, a lot of players aren't playing on tour right now because their mental health isn't okay. And as I said, it's all like, I'll close with this, is just the way that things are on tour, or just, I'm okay, but for a normal person, it's just not okay for someone's mental health.